and welcome to Superintendents Roundtable. I'm Deborah Vinsel. Periodically, we bring together the superintendents from our area schools to talk about education and issues in our schools locally. Today, we have with us 3 superintendents and an assistant superintendent, so let me introduce our guests. We have Mike Kirby from the Tumwater Schools, Raj Manhas from the North Thurston Public Schools. Sitting in for Andy Wolf is Lisa Cadera-Smith, the assistant superintendent from the Yelm Community Schools, and also Dick Cvitanich from the Olympia School District. So thank you all for taking time. I know your schedules are very busy, especially this time of year, and we really appreciate you being with us. Raj, I'm going to start with you because right at the top of the show, this is our last Superintendent's Roundtable for the year. And a lot has happened since our last roundtable, but a lot has happened in the last couple of months specifically. And we had a very scary incident that involved a firearm at the North Thurston High School. And I just want you to share with us how are things going since that, and what, if any, changes have you implemented in your school district relative to student safety?
Well, first of all, as you said, it was very traumatic experience for our school system and the region and K-12 in general. But we are grateful that nobody was hurt. But one of the things I'll start by saying that about 2 years ago, this region, we invited everyone. We hosted a safety summit after the Sandy Hook. A huge tragedy there. And that all of our school systems from our county and sheriff's office and police, everybody was involved. So we have been talking about some of, and it's sad that we have to plan and do stuff like this, but our school district, especially, but also I want to say everyone, from the police and county police and the local police and others, they all, even Olympia police, they all came right away, and it was amazing response. So for me to stand there right in the middle of the field when we were working with our students and their families, things went as well as they could. You know, it was really remarkably handled situation by everybody because we have been thinking and talking and working on this training. The part which I want to comment here is that the teacher there, Brady Olson, that says a lot about teachers in general, but he and also the police officer, Officer Ed McLanahan, who is stationed there. You know, we have 3 major high schools and we have 3 resource officers. We partner with City of Lacey and to provide that service. So they're doing a lot of good work, preventive and connecting with kids. So he was there, and also the community in general, the businesses there, Lowe's and Safeways, they opened their places, they closed the stores for a little bit because nobody knew what's happening. So as kids were leaving the place. And I believe that given all of that, it was even under a very difficult situation, my feeling was this is an amazing community where businesses, where our police, where parents and everyone came together. And then we had a community meeting where almost 300 some people attended. It was nobody was really complaining about, nobody actually, by that how we handled the situation. But they were all kind of being together, wanted to sort of, it was a healing out of this difficult time. And also I want to mention that we, Marysville folks were helpful. It's really interesting that a month earlier, they came to us, including their superintendent and everyone else, to talk about our positive behavior. You know, our discipline issues are way down in high schools and everywhere else. And so they were looking at that. We made a presentation at the state level, so they were kind of working on that. So we had some contacts and we called them, and they came over, and they were part of our sort of healing process, helping us how to work with this. But now at this point in time, I can say this to you a month later, amazing resilience of our students and staff and people who work for public schools. In general, I would say, we are not alone. I think I can say my colleagues will say the same thing. So we are thankful that nobody was hurt, but the question still goes through my mind. It doesn't matter, although this student was with us only 4 weeks. We as a community, we as a society, we need to do more helping these kids. They are with us only 6 hours of the day. And beyond that, what goes on in their lives? What are they dealing with? We need to be much more aware and provide whatever resources and help we can provide.
Mm-hmm. So I think when we were all in school, you know, we had fire drills, and depending on where you lived in the United States, maybe other kind of natural disaster drills. But are there practices for live shooting incidents? Are those things that you carry out on a regular basis in your schools?
Yes, we do regularly, and actually, it's really interesting that we were training our principals and other staff, and we had done a couple of training sessions, not the live shooting kind of training, but training and what to do in situations like that. And it happened just a couple of weeks earlier, and it's just not that really did what it did, but the part which I believe this basic summit we all did together on safety and helping our students if something like this happens, and the staff, that was really helpful, I believe. The mindset of our staff, and they were bus drivers, maintenance people, everyone chipped in, and nobody, because you can't really plan for everything. It was just before the school had started, and some kids were inside the school, some were outside, and it wasn't like school was in session at that time.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I was actually in the gym, and I was watching, you know, a closed caption because the sound was off, and everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, oh my!" You could hear it throughout. "Oh my gosh, following what was going on. So since that incident, have there been changes in school safety practices at North Thurston, or have you ramped up something?
Not really, to be honest. I think what we are, events like this sort of raises the level of awareness even beyond what we were already kind of really working on it. And as I said, I am very impressed by the work even the police which does with us. You know, a lot of time people look at police as, oh, they're police and their guns and all of that stuff, but our Lacey police, these officers who work with us, and he happens to be right there. And I, not that they are always expecting something like this, but they are kind of working with kids, and you know, they know them, and they kind of, all of the kind of preventive work and figuring out if there's anything. But we will be definitely looking at, as we build our new facilities, incorporating some of the visibility, when front, entrance areas, and so that those kind of things will be part of our capital program, which we are thankful the community supported us, last year. So we will be doing some of those things differently.
Well, I know the whole community is thankful that no one was injured and that the incident was resolved without any further conflict. So I do want to open this up to the rest of you to, comment or share what happened in your districts, what happened in your schools. Have there been changes since this incident? Lisa and I had a conversation before we started, and I said, you watch the news and you see news reports about things like this, and you've never seen that happen in your community, and you pray that it never does, you think that it can't or it won't, and then all of a sudden it's right in your backyard. So I just want to open it for conversation. If somebody wants to jump in, have at it.
Sure. First, I'd like to compliment the North Thurston Public Schools for what they did, the response, and we're grateful that no one was injured, but it seems to me, looking from a neighborhood perspective, that they did a terrific job. In a bigger picture, we live in a free and democratic society, and I think looking at it from that perspective, our public schools are an integral part of that, but so are businesses in the community, theaters, wherever people gather. Now, I think we want to assume the best, but there are also assumed risks, and that's obviously been a shift in our society, certainly since Columbine. We have been working hard, and not just since North Thurston, but prior to that, as well as I think most school districts have, trying to sort through what are the best practices in terms of student safety and trying to protect our students and our families who enter our schools. And it is challenging. There are multiple doors to buildings. There are students who attend our schools who are working through difficult issues. We're already engaged in a process in the last few years reviewing what we're doing. We met with the City of Olympia Police Department earlier in the year, had officers come and speak to all of our principals, and we're in the middle of a review of all of our practices, and that's been ongoing. The one thing that I would say, based on experiences, and I think this is the challenge for us, is that we begin to rest easy, and we put a lot of energy into student safety, and we work hard at it. It takes time, and nothing happens for a while, and then it happens over here or it happens over there. And I think the challenge for all of us in public education and in public places is what our mission is drives what we do and what we spend most of our energy on. And when we see something like this happen, it reminds us that, you know, there's probably nothing more important than the student safety for all of us. So we have to continue to keep that focus, not push when something happens and then relax, push and relax.
Vigilance.
We can't be in that mindset anymore.
Lisa?
I agree with that. I think that's a great way to describe it. I think we all took safety very seriously prior to this event, but it happened so close to home, I think, this time. And we too in Yelm were very, very proud of the handling of this by administration and certainly the teacher Brady Olson. Pretty amazing, and we see a lot of examples of teachers behaving just like that, very courageously when these sorts of things happen, very surprising. And we've done some specific things around safety in our district. We've hired 2 resource officers at our middle schools. We did that actually in the winter. We had 2 members of North Thurston Sheriff's Department come out and talk with our administrators about active shooter events and kind of listen to their site-specific concerns and walk through those with them. And then we're looking at our district preparedness plan, and we'll be making some changes in that as well. So I think it's something we're ever vigilant about, but I think what Dick said is right. These are reminders that we can't relax, and I think we have to keep that perspective always. Safety is first.
Mike, what's happening in Tumwater?
Well, again, I'd like to share my appreciation for the North Thurston School District and the Lacey community, and frankly, Tumwater PD was on hand and Olympia PD was on hand. It was a Thurston County effort, and so I really appreciate that, because if something like that were to happen in Tumwater, I expect that we'd have the same response. So that's pretty cool. What we've been doing, 2 years ago, we reviewed all of our emergency response for all of our buildings. We've done that piece. This year, we're actually working with Tumwater Fire Department in looking at relocation for evacuations. So each year we take on a new challenge that's related to all of this. In our passing of our bond, we're looking at all of our buildings in terms of safety. And we actually have a consulting company that's been working with us for the last couple of months. We're looking at automated locks, enhanced intercom system, actually externally fencing and those type of things to route people. We're looking at the new buildings that we have are going to have safety, but we want to make sure that we've worked through all of our buildings on a safety, and we have about $2.75 million designated in our bond for this work. That all being said, schools are public schools, and we're going to have people coming and going all of the time. And the key piece, I think, is still the relationship that we have with our kids, the relationship that the adults have with students in the schools is key. a tough part for North Thurston in this incident was the student had only been there 4 weeks. Chances are if that student had been there 4 months, this wouldn't have happened because there would have been relationships built. 4 weeks is a pretty short period of time. So the key for all of us, I still think, is the relationships that we form with our students and with our families. And we do that, we're going to be aware of which students are at risk, which students have extra problems, and we'll be able to intervene in that process. And I think that's the most important thing we can do.
So it's vigilance, it's planning, it's, preparing for an event that you pray never comes, but being prepared for it.
But also, as Mike was saying, I think this whole area of providing support to students, social, emotional connection, and we have been working, as I said, all of us have been working, but I'm so impressed by our own 3-4 years of work, positive behavior, which is grounded in really learning about every student, what are some of the challenges and issues they are facing. In some ways we can say, well, it's society's work, it's people work, but they are with us. And we know, we should know. And it's not only academics and that side. And that is something I think our society at large and our policymakers, they need to understand that we as public schools, we are dealing with these kind of issues which are beyond academics. So we need to really be serious about that, and in our case, it's paying off in a lot of ways. And not that, as Mike said, if we had this student for longer than 4 weeks, even then something could happen. But the likelihood of that happening is lower because we pretty much know about every child.
Or you would have recognized a
Yes.
potential challenge and might have been able to
Exactly
intervene. Right. Well, and in a conversation, again, Lisa and I had earlier, we talked a lot about the changes in what a school is. It's not just a place where kids come to learn, but there are so many other things that schools have had to, not necessarily through any legislative action, but just through a need of the population that you serve, services that are now being provided in schools that are not academic in nature, but are more social services. And, recognizing potential mental health issues or providing a hot meal in the morning or, the kinds of things that were not part of the school system I grew up in. And yet there's very limited resources. And I say this just as kind of a way to start looping in the conversation about funding, because nothing happens in just its own little compartmental bubble. Everything that you do at your schools and in your districts, whether it's improving your safety or providing a hot meal or enhancing your academic services to your students, is tied back to funding. And we find ourselves again with the state legislature heading into another special session. They are not done. They've been through one special session, heading into a second. And the question of school funding still is not answered. So that was a long, rambling introduction to the topic, but where does that leave us? So I'm going to start with you, Mike, on that.
Well,
what are we looking at?
the bottom line, it's really quite simple. Additional revenue is necessary, and until the legislature is willing to take on that challenge, they're going to be moving money around, as opposed to really addressing the issues. Even if you provided basically all of the extra money out there for education, then you decimate social services, which actually increases the burden on schools as well. We're already taking on a lot of challenges of social services, and we're trying to network with social services as much as we can as a school system. So the bottom line is revenue. Now, is the legislature ever going to really step up and actually do something about the revenue source? That's the key. I don't see a possibility in them actually fully funding education the way they're supposed to by 2018. I just don't see it unless they actually come up with a revenue source that's not there. I guess the other part that concerns me is that they get sidetracked on so many other things as basically detractors so that they don't really focus on the issue. We've known what the issue was before the legislative session started in January, And now we're headed into June, and they still don't have a resolution. And they're, I guess, between the Republicans and the Democrats, they're waiting to see who blinks first, and here we go. So
A game of political chicken.
Exactly.
You know? So, but this impacts you in terms of your budget for next year. I mean, I'm sure you probably have kind of an idea of what your budget's going to be, but there's no dollar figures out there. So how on earth do you plan for the 2015-16 school year?
Just to throw out one big issue that we're working right is all-day kindergarten.
Right.
According to the initial Senate budget, 5 of our 6 elementaries would be fully funded for all-day kindergarten. According to the House budget, 3 of our 6. What do? Well, we're planning on the minimum one, 3 of 6 being fully funded for all-day kindergarten. That creates some inequity in your district when you plan that way, but every district has to deal with that. Our principals are very much concerned because staffing is a big issue, and finding quality teachers is a big issue for all of us, all the way around the state. So we just had a large group meeting 2 days ago on this very issue, and we have a plan moving forward which is flexible enough, hopefully, that we can adjust as the legislature actually provides us some numbers. That's just one example.
Raj?
Well, I think in general, what Mike said is absolutely right. I agree. I would say, even go back again on a big picture level, that we as a state, for not now, for last 10, 15, 20 years, we are in the bottom 10, 11 states in the country.
On per capita funding.
Per student funding. And then also I looked at, this year's numbers on nationally percentage of taxable resources in the state. There are only 9 states below us. So I always raise this question for us on a moral level, on overall professional level, and any angle you look at. Does our state belong in that place with the largest companies in the world stationed here in our province, in our state? So I think that's a big part, but the other is just the whole funding thing is so complex. There's some local funding, and so local funding has become part of the basic education. So there's a lot of issues related with that. If somebody is not, people are not supporting the community, local community doesn't support some levies, isn't that inequity? And how much a particular school system can raise versus another can raise. So that's that. And also I think about it's so complex, the whole funding system. And they keep on tweaking, but they'll tweak here and it will go wrong somewhere else. And then who has to put up with us? People who are in the trenches dealing with on a daily basis. Either it's employee contracts, or working with hiring processes and the timing. I mean, if we as a state can't even figure out the basic timing of getting the budget done, what does it say about us? That's the question I have, because 1 million students, more than 1 million students are impacted in our state, and everyone else who works with them. There should be a better way, and timely, and proper funding. And if our folks are looking at without any revenues they can deal with it, economy will go down again. What will happen then? So we might have some resources now, but what will happen 4 or 5 years from now? So we'll still continue to be in the bottom 9, 10 states in the country.
Does the uncertainty of what's going to happen, how is that impacting you for next year?
Well, it's as Mike kind of said that, we have learned how to be flexible. We are not going to be finalizing, for example, there's a lot of talk of COLA. So if that happens, we can't.
Cost of living adjustment.
Cost of living adjustment. We can't finalize that. And so we may have to just work with our associations and unions and say, well, we have to go back and adjust and do something, because right now we can't just do that and knowing that money may not be there.
And not have the funding to support it, yeah.
So we are trying to stay flexible and continue to stay student-centered, because that's what I believe our primary job is, to do the best we can to help our kids. But in the end, I think we as adults have to look at, all of us, I'm talking about policymakers, I'm talking about us as superintendents and our community at large, businesses. It's easy to say, how come we are not comparing with such and such state or such and such nation, but we should have the courage to say we want to invest the right amount of resources.
Lisa, how's it impacting Yelm?
I think the very same way that both Mike and Raj are describing. I think what we're hoping to see in this session is some very strong growth toward that 2018 goal. There's really no other business or organization that could run effectively the way that we do, not ever knowing our revenue on a regular basis. And I think we're being called upon more than ever to raise standards for our children. We want more for them. And in order to do that, we need the proper resources to make that happen. And so I think it's our hope that there is compromise that happens in the legislature, and a very, very serious look at this on a state level. We simply have to do better for our kids.
Dick, how about you?
I agree with my colleagues, and you should probably ask me the question first, because I get a little bit more global, because I don't want to repeat what my colleagues have said. But I think our legislature is a microcosm of our entire government right now. And this country has fundamentally changed in the last 25 or 30 years. People only need to look at the demographics and how it's changed. And the needs are different. And we have people with different ideologies, some trying to look back to the 50s and 60s, the way public education looked, the way the infrastructure of the country looked. We're different. And it's time, I think, not just for our legislature, but in a broader sense, for us to decide what kind of place are we going to be for our citizens, and what do we value. One of the best things that I heard coming out of the legislature this year was Senator Dammeier saying, education is a public good. We should be paying for it. And I could probably say that about a lot of things, and that implies changing some tax structures, et cetera. But I think it's a fundamental problem across the country, and we need to figure out who we're going to be as a country. We need to figure out who we're going to be as a state and move forward. I'm personally sort of tired of the conversation and the posturing. We need to figure this out.
Yes, and we've had this conversation how many times?
Yes.
It's kind of a perennial conversation at the roundtable.
But one thing I agree with Dick, one thing I'll add is that when there are 10, 15 states in this country funding it almost at the right level, they're doing it already for education
We
standpoint.
can do this.
I mean, there are some problems there too in those states, political and others. But I look at Massachusetts, always, similar sized state. Do they have more businesses than us, or do they have more? I don't know, but their funding is much better, and the performance is much better. So we as a state, has been said before, we have performed much better than our financial sport, where our position is. So anyway, so that's, even under the difficult times we are going through as a nation, some states are doing it the right way.
Well, and they've just made that the priority.
Yes.
Right.
So, and I do not in any way want to diminish the very difficult job our legislators have. I know there are lots of competing interests, but our Constitution, our state Constitution says it's the paramount duty to fund education.
Yes.
The Supreme Court has found that the legislature is, not doing their job, and so there have been some pretty clear guidelines established, and yet we still come to this discussion pretty much every time we get together. So, well, thank you for that. Let's move on to more academic discussions. We have STEM, and we also have state testing. STEM being science, technology, engineering, and math, and some people tuck an A in there and call it STEAM and include the arts. So let's talk a little bit about that, about, how is it impacting educational programs in your district? There seems to be a lot of focus on that. So let's start with you, Lisa.
All right. Well, I think looking at STEM on a national level, it's, why do we think this topic is so important? And I think one of the things that we've realized is we don't have a workforce to keep up with the demand in this field. And so we're looking to education and saying, what do we need to do differently to prepare students? It's not only these individual topics of STEM that you mentioned, but it's the interrelationship between them. And that is then requiring us to structure our courses in different ways to reflect that interrelationship. And so in Yelm, we're doing a number of things. We have a focus around ag science, computer science, and engineering robotics. And so we have pathways starting in 8th grade that move students through toward those goals. They have the opportunity to change, but it starts out with kind of an exploratory approach in the beginning and then moves toward, something more solidified over time. We also are, in mathematics, we got a $675,000 grant from DODEA, Department of Defense, to administer a Math Forward program, and that's an algebra readiness program where kids have handheld computers that provide graphical representations of the algorithms that they're working, and it allows for assessment in real time and things like that. And so we're hoping that that'll be another tool in strengthening our mathematics, and then of course our science as well. And then we're looking to the next generation science standards, or the Washington State Science Standards, as we'll rename them, and looking at they are nicely integrated with the Common Core, with the mathematics and English language arts, and that's a good thing. And so we'll be looking at how we, again, structure our courses differently to meet the demands of those new science standards.
Great. Dick, how is Olympia handling STEM?
Well, we've been invested in science, technology, and math for a good number of years. It's part of all of our schools. We have a particular middle school, Jefferson Middle School, which is a STEM middle school, and just a terrific place for students. And the focus is on science, technology, and math, and that's a choice program in our district, and it's grown from a choice program to how do I get my child into this middle school? And that's a pleasant problem to have. It's rooted in those disciplines. We've constructed classrooms for those needs. For example, STEM drives some different initiatives, and you need to change your building. You can't have labs in a typical classroom. You need space, you need tabletops, you need access to gas, you need access to water. So we're being very mindful about what we're building because of this. I'll give you another example. Chemistry at the high school. People would take chemistry, move on to the next class. Well, we're trying to make sure that we can cross-credit with things like material science. So kids aren't sitting in a lab, but they're going out into a shop area and applying technology to real-world problems. So our emphasis is really in that area. The other piece that I would mention is around robotics. I talk about this a lot, and we could all claim that we do good jobs in a variety of things. I like to say, we're the robotics leaders in the state of Washington. We start really with First Lego League in our elementary schools, and we have truly probably the most robust robotics program in the state. And we host competitions, we invite other school districts to participate. This Saturday we've got another big competition. And that whole push into the robotics, I've got our little thing that we say, we're growing students from being consumers of technology to being creators of technology. And that's what we want. And that's what we want in the area of science, because we think that's where employment opportunities exist. We're very proud of where we are.
And wasn't there a robotics team that just went to a big national or international competition?
Our robotics team has actually selected to go to the World Championship for the past 2 years. This past year finished 6th in St. Louis. In fact, I should give a little mention. It's such a part of our district that we nominated our STEM Pals. This is a parent support group that raises money and helps coach and works with our teachers. We nominated them for a WASA Community Award that they received on Wednesday night just for the outstanding work that they do. Our students qualified on a Saturday, and we needed $20,000 to send kids to St. Louis on a Wednesday, and they worked in the community to raise that money. And I would say beyond the intellectual growth that our students are making, what we're stressing in our classrooms is the collaborative nature of that work. It's what people want in the workforce. They're not interested, well, they are interested in the geniuses who can sit in a silo and create, but they're really interested in this collaborative model of problem solving, and that's the other thread that runs through our STEM programs.
Great. Mike, how's Tumwater dealing with STEM?
There's multiple ways that we're trying to attack the STEM issue. One of the things that we've done in the last 2 years is that every elementary has specialists, PE specialists, art specialists. We now have tech specialists in all our elementary schools so that we actually get kids engaged in using technology every week throughout the year. We also, for the first time, have hired technology TOSAs to support teachers in actually using technology in their instructional practices. And they have been extremely well received. We have one working at elementary and one, and this is new this year as part of our bond. So we're trying to actually support our teachers in incorporating more technology in their everyday instructional practice. That's going on. With STEM itself, we have engaged in Project Lead the Way. One of the courses that's tied to that is engineering design. It actually uses a 3D printer process. Okay. And the key piece to this course, it's not designed for our brightest math students or our brightest science students. It's designed for your average student to actually engage in this. And that's what we need to do. Instead of looking at this as an elitist type program, which I think has been the case in the past, and probably one of the reasons that we have a limited number of students going into engineering is we need to open it up for all kids and engage all kids to some level and give them the opportunity. And we might be really surprised at the additional students or students that we wouldn't expect, both girls and boys, that would be engaged if we're given the opportunity to be successful in this type of thing. So we're doing that. We're also looking at adding computer science as a CTE crossover course. This engineering course is also. So we're looking at ways to enhance our CTE programs as well as our basic ed programs in the process. We do now have robotics in all of our secondary schools. Our STEM focus at the elementary is a little sporadic. There's a couple of schools that have pretty well-developed STEM programs and others that don't. So we're not consistent. We need to become more consistent in the opportunity for kids across the district. But it is a real focus for us, and as it is for everybody, and we're working on it. But there's multiple challenges and there's multiple ways you really need to address the issue.
And I think anything you can do to get, the creative juices flowing too, because you watch any 3-year-old with a set of Legos and they will engineer something, and it's usually pretty amazing. So let's talk a little bit now about testing standards, because they are, I'm sorry, Raj.
That's okay. I think it already has been said, but I'll just go very quickly that STEM to us is that it brings everything together for students. And as been said, the market out there is changing, job market. There are different needs and different requirements. So in some ways, I feel, looking back, we have siloed the education. Here's the reading, here's the writing, here is this, and, mathematics. It's applied mathematics, but also weaving all the science content areas into the reading and writing and everything else, K-12. And we're working very hard. I think talking about robotics, we do have also in middle and high. And this year, our Chinook Middle School was the state champion. So I'm very proud of them, of their work. And we have engaged the community. So Lacey, City of Lacey and the community there, they did a STEM fair just a couple of weeks ago. So there were a lot of schools participated in that. And moving into next year, we have a strong STEM programs at high school level, but we are going to take it to the next level, notch higher. So River Ridge is the first school we'll start with this summer. Their whole one wing is being kind of created a STEM academy, where the new labs, new areas, and it's going to be all ready before the start of the year, where we'll be adding pre-engineering and health sciences. for those students. And then we will do in all high schools. So our goal is to really expand this program everywhere, not that, the reading and writing and everything else will go on, and we have a very strong music program, arts program, school system, and that will stay. But I think this is really weaving into our curriculum areas, everything, this whole STEM ideas is the way to go, and that's what we are working on.
I didn't mean to leave you out of that,
That's okay.
out of the loop, but
Okay.
thanks for sharing. We participated at the Lacey STEM Fair, and I wasn't there, but my staff said, there were just a lot of wonderful little activities for kids to take part in. So
It's just inspiring
it's
them.
becoming a more, I think the public is becoming more
Exactly right.
aware of what it is and how it
Absolutely.
impacts students and how students are involved in it. So now let's transition to testing. We'll start with you, Dick. New, different? It seems like every time we get together, there's a new testing protocol. So how'd it go?
So from a technological perspective, it went well. We were nervous about how we would connect. Would we have enough Chromebooks or machines, computers to handle the assessment? And I think our teachers and our technology team did a great job. The results are extremely slow in coming back, and in fact, we could probably sit here and have a lengthy discussion about the K-4 reading law and the data that we're waiting for to get back, so we can have conversations about the students who aren't achieving a level at reading. We have not seen much in the way of results back, which was promised to us. I think the biggest challenge for us in the Olympia School District, frankly, was our junior class and their ability to opt out of the assessment. I think you saw that grow across the state in various communities, and in the Olympia School District, our high school juniors, probably 50% of them assessed, took the assessment. And so in one sense, for me, that was disappointing. Certainly people have the opportunity to opt out. I kind of like the baseline data to measure growth over time. But I think all the energy around the concerns about would we be able to administer the test, that was met easily. The results we would have liked to have seen before now, and we keep hearing they're coming, but they're trickling in a real odd way. So right now, that's our biggest challenge.
So what's the message to parents relative to the new testing standards? What is it you want parents to know or have an understanding of?
I think there are two things. One, even as a school district, we probably agree that our kids are over-assessed, number one. Number two is that we believe our students should be assessed. And let's make sure that we're landing in the right spot that's the most productive, that allows a school district to improve, which is what we want to do.
And before I move on to, and you will all have plenty of time, do you have a sense of why so many students opted out of the test? I mean, what's...
Well, for our juniors, there was really, frankly, other than taking the assessment, not a whole lot to gain. They didn't need it to graduate. It wasn't required in colleges and universities, although there is a consortium of colleges and universities that would look at the score if a student maybe was on the borderline, that they could look at that. And I think they reached that point that we have end-of-course assessments, we have AP tests, we have other assessments, that this is just another assessment and I could be doing something else.
Right.
That's number one. And number two, one of the beauties of working in the Olympia community is that it's an eclectic community. And we have a number of optional programs across our school district. And we have a lot of independent thinking parents who want their children not only raised in a certain way, but educated in a certain way. And I think they're responding to the assessment cycle that takes place as well. And they want to ensure that our school district and the public at large recognizes that the whole student, that they're not just an assessment.
They're not just a test score.
Right.
Okay. Mike, how about in your district?
Well, very similar to Olympia. The actual implementation of the SBAC was very well done. We had just minor glitches. We had a district team with our technology department that was in the buildings the first time they were testing each time. So we were well prepared with support. I think all of the students had opportunities to practice on the Chromebooks prior to actually using the Chromebooks, and we were able to, with our bond, to actually purchase lots of Chromebooks. I think over 1,200 over the last year to actually support the process. As well, our buildings became even more cooperative. Like our 2 middle schools actually shared their Chromebooks in their buildings so that they could actually speed up the process for each other. And so we had a lot of collaboration going on. Our staff did a wonderful job, both the basic ed staff and the administration, as well as our tech staff, in supporting the assessment. As Dick mentioned, Olympia had gotten quite a bit of press about students kind of opting out, and in reality, when it came right down to it, we didn't have a very high percentage in Tumwater actually take the 11th grade assessment either. A disappointing number from that. But again, from a student perspective, what's the value? And that's one of the things that I think is really important about assessment in general. There needs to be value in it for everybody concerned, for the student, for our staff obviously, for the parent if the student is, and so on. And if there's not, then we're going to have some apathy. Right. We're going to have people that kids that are checking out of the process. So, and we do over-assess probably. The one thing that I would say that's really a positive about the new assessment is that we can actually use the results of this assessment to enhance instruction. With the MSP and the HISP and before that the WASL, it was not there. You had to go really deep and do you had to look at strands and have some specialists come in and work with you to actually gain much from it. But with the SBAC, we can actually use that to enhance our instructional practice. We also have a assessment battery that in the future we'll actually be able to use with students to benchmark as well. So it's a better assessment than the old assessment. Again, though, it needs to have meaning for the student, and if it doesn't have meaning for the student, then we're going to have this problem.
Right. Raj?
I think I'll start by saying that the Common Core standards we have talked here before is a good thing. A lot of time people are struggling with that. So there are standards, and then there's the testing. So there's right now testing is going on, so sometimes they confuse and mix both of those. Common Core, especially for our community, but in general, a lot of mobility, for students, military families coming from other states. Having common standards for our nation is a good thing, and that's one of my first messages to our community. And they are tougher, and they are going to be difficult for some time, and until we continue to provide support and get our students ready, and that's what's going to make us competitive in the world. So that's one. And the second is the testing. Testing part for us, I think the mechanics went very well, everything, technology, people prepared really, really well. Participation at elementary and middle was just the same we had before, like 95% or something. But in high school, as Mike said, there's a lot of publicity out there. So we started pretty good, but I think it dropped participation at high school. I think it's around, so far we still have a week left for our high school students. It's about, in language arts, about 60 to 70%. And in mathematics, anywhere from 50-something to 60%. So it's not 100%, but at the same time, I believe as we talk more and more about this, and has already been said, there are too many things right now we are doing in high school level. There's old standards, old testing, and the new testing. So, and next 2-3 years are difficult. Once we get out of this hole and everything is
the
Common
transition.
Core. Yeah. So the smarter balanced assessments, will become the thing to work on. I think it will get better. And I do feel that our students, our staff and people, we have been communicating very well. We didn't have much parent negativity about standards and the testing. It's the students who some of them didn't, you know.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so.
So, and just so for clarification with our viewers, how often are students assessed? Are they assessed every year up through grade 11, or because Wausau it was 4th, 7th, 10th? You know, what's the different structure of the? And I'll come to you if you want to start with that and finish up with the rest of it. That'd be great.
So annually in
Annually.
grades 3 through 8, and then again in 11, and then we have some EOCs, some end of course exams in there as well. And so we're transitioning in we're living in these two worlds right now. Our experience in Yelm with testing was actually very positive. Our assessment director did a beautiful job of really managing the system and interfacing a lot with OSPI, which helped tremendously. She took a lot of information, synthesized it down for people in a great way, and then was very, very responsive to the needs that were happening while testing was going on. We deployed a lot of Chromebooks out into the system, and that made a very positive difference. They worked really well. We had very few problems, allowed us to test more kids at once and get through the process quicker. And the other thing I would say, just big picture, is that, you know, we're at the most challenging point right now. This is a significant change, and the test itself is not as much what is so critical. It's the standards, as Raj was saying. This is really about, this is a new tool that's assessing a new set of standards, and so this is a new baseline for us, and it's a change, and it's been a lot of change in a short period of time, and I think there's a tendency for that to cause angst, understandably so. So we're moving through that.
Great. Well, we're coming up to the end of our time. I love having these conversations with you, but we're also coming up to the end of the school year. So I'm going to start with Mike. Go around the table. It's story time. And I know it's hard to pick one special story out of an entire school year, but it's time to share something that has touched you or filled you or has particularly reaffirmed that you're in the right place, doing the right thing at the right time. So we'll start with you.
It's been a great year in the Tumwater School District, again, in general, and our teachers are working very diligently, and our kids do show continuous progress in all areas. We're pretty excited about that. But there's a specific incident area at Black Lake Elementary that I think is noteworthy. We had a group of 4th grade students that chose to take on a research project. It's called starfish wasting syndrome. And apparently in the Northwest, we have a huge starfish problem. They're just dying, and nobody really knows why. In fact, Congressman Denny Heck has actually proposed a bill that's in the works right now. So our 4th grade students at Black Lake took this on as an environmental issue. They researched it, but beyond researching, they come up with solutions. They actually developed a trifold, they developed PowerPoints, they developed a discussion, and they invited Congressman Heck in on just 2 days ago. He actually came and visited, and they shared all of their research with him on this project, and they really took it to heart, and I think he was very pleased, and I know that we are in the district very pleased that we have some 4th grade students that had this much interest, and it was their idea. They took on the challenge, and they really did a great job. So
Congratulations on that.
For
Raj.
us, you know, there's so many different stories I can share, but one of the things which we did this first time, Panorama Retirement Community hosted an event, and they basically asked us to see if we can bring some of the high school students, and 4 of our students and 4 folks who are residents of Panorama. So they're into 70s and 80s, and so there was a discussion about their high school experiences.
Oh.
It was just so wonderful to listen to stories from folks who went to high school so long ago, and our students presently now, and then really to be honest, in the end, issues were the same.
Right.
Same sort of things. Kids, present day kids, you know, our technology changes and other things change, but in reality, same emotions, same feelings, same things we are talking about. So the moderator towards the end, there were a lot of people who attended from that community, and we were very impressed. And I gave a kind of state of the district address, and there was some music, but in the end, this fellow who moderated, he said, you know, the future of our society is in good hands. So that was really inspiring for me, for listening to someone who has seen a lot in his life. So
Great. Lisa.
I'm incredibly proud of our technology implementation in the district, both our Chromebooks and our Math Forward, our Texas Instrument handheld computers. It's not only the devices themselves and the new opportunities that they're affording kids, but it's the people that go along with them. It's the people who work out of my office, the instructional specialists who are providing support to our teachers to help them use these tools and provide the coaching. And there's just been significant change, I think, in our teacher practices and in student learning, and our community's noticing that. So I'm very proud of that this year.
Congratulations on that. Dick?
Well, there are many things, as Raj said, but I want to talk about a different kind of assessment for a moment, and I will be brief, I promise. I attended Marshall Middle School's production of The Lion King Jr. Last week. My wife and I went. And when you want to talk about an assessment, a public performance is truly an assessment. The audience is watching. And I'm getting goosebumps right now. It was put together. There are 70 students, parents, teachers, and I can say without question that, and I've been at this for many years, it is the finest middle school performance I've ever seen. The singing, the dancing, the costumes, the choreography. And I literally had goosebumps and was unbelievably proud of that public assessment that was so first rate. So
There's something about hearing the applause.
Yes, there
It's really
is.
great. Well, I want to thank you all for being with us today. This is, again, our last roundtable for the school year, and wish you a restful summer. I'm sure we will see you all again, and I hope we see you at the table again, or we'll see Andy in the fall. So have a great summer, and it's graduation, so everybody's commencing forward. So and with that, I do want to say congratulations to the class of 2015. You've worked hard for the last 12 years. And you're moving forward in your life. So we wish you much success and happiness in your life journey as this new chapter unfolds. And to the parents of the graduating class of 2015, thank you for the support and very good work you did with your students. Family involvement in a child's education is important to their success, and you have living proof that your work was well done. If you're the child of a preschool, if you're the parent of a preschool child, please read with your child 20 minutes a day. It's one of the best things you can do to get them ready for their education. And if you're the child of if you're the parent of a school-age child, I'm having a hard time with this one today, of a school-age child, please get involved with your child's education. There are many ways that you can volunteer. Go to the district website or talk to your child's teacher or principal to find out how you can be involved. For all of us here at the Roundtable, I'm Deborah Vinsel. Please join us again in the fall. We'll see you then.